Welcome to A Pound of Flesh, a Flesh and Blood TCG podcast. On this podcast, we take 16 minutes to deep dive into one specific question. My name is Scowling, and every week I have a guest. My guest this week is CYK Lionel. CYK Lionel has been putting in tons of great results as far back as 2022 with the top 4 at the Calling in Singapore. He's been consistently achieving top 8s in Battle Hardens and Callings, and certainly one of the highlights of his Flesh and Blood career is winning the Calling in Auckland earlier this year. So help me welcome CYK to the pod today. How are you doing?
Good, very good. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. It's fantastic to have you here. So let's get into the question right away then. What is the one thing you would recommend every Flesh and Blood player do to get better at the game?
Well, for starters, Flesh and Blood is not an easy game compared to other card games. I recommend you should start by the basics. For example, before understanding what's the card text, what it does, try to see the pitch, the defense value, and the attack, the most basic numbers, and then to understand, okay, what's your primary game plan and how you're going to achieve it by using 4 cards every turn. That's the most basic, simple for my answer.
I think that makes a lot of sense to just boil it down to the very basics, and a lot of the cards have a lot of text on it, so it can be easy to get lost in that. So when you're evaluating or thinking about the basics of a card, you mentioned pitch, block, and an attack value.
And attack, yeah.
What specifically are you looking for there?
So, Flesh and Blood, we have 3 colors. So there's red, yellow, blue. So most of the times, we consider the red card is either the most aggressive or the most defensive card out of all the other colors, and the yellow one is kind of mid. But sometimes its effect is so good to the fact that you have to put it in a deck no matter what. And then for the blue part, it's for your resource. Yeah. For the blue cards, for example, if you join Flesh and Blood for a while, I assume that you understand that there's a set called Partner Misfill, where they give out the super good cards. All the blue cards are good cards. The fact that those cards can increase, it's almost the same as a red card in a way when you play it. And then we go to which is the attacking power. So Flesh and Blood, all cards as me, I would say that, okay, it's a 3 value card. So either it's a 3 attack or maybe a 4 with a downside, or maybe its attack will go a lot higher, but the cost is quite higher. And for the defense value part, we have the D-Reacts, the Sink Blows, Fate Foreseen, those cards are basically 4 in defense, which costs 0. Some of the D-Reacts currently in new sets that recently released in Super Slam, they have conditional effects. Maybe there's a downside for you, or something that can affect the whole game plan just to use that D-React in a way. Or even the defense, if you go to the blue D-Reacts, the defense value is a lot lower compared to the red D-Reacts, which is just in a way, if you understand how the card works and how your hero what's your hero game plan is and how you're going to achieve it, I think this is the most basic and simple way. But if you want to improve yourself more, I think that you should try to play more different heroes. For example, maybe try Guardian if you want to go for the more defensive type, or you can just go to maybe Syndra, the aggressive types decks. Or maybe if you're more interested in those board state decks, you can try Gravy or Prism too.
I think it's a very good point. And if you think about the different heroes and the different cards they use, so the most basic card is blocks for 3, attacks for 3, 0 cost, I believe. That's the most basic.
The most basic.
So when you look at that, these cards may have different roles or functions in different heroes. So I think it's probably a way to learn how that works in different heroes, because just because one card is good on its basic level in one hero, it's not good in another one just because the hero wants to do a different thing.
Yep, you're correct. For example, if you put a 0 cost attack for 4, like for example, a Snatch in Guardian, it feels like meh because that's not what Guardian tries to achieve. Guardian tries to achieve like blocking more and attacking aggressively, like high power attacks. But if you put like a Snatch card in Syndra or maybe a Ninja aggressive type decks, that 4 value converts more than the 1 card 4 with on hit effects.
Yeah. And just for those who may not be aware of Snatch, Snatch is 0 for 4, and if it hits, you draw a card. It's often played to really ask your opponent a difficult question. Do you want to give me a block for 3 plus an equipment or a second card, or do you want to give me that card either to put into Arsenal for next turn or to potentially even extend my turn? So a very strong card. You mentioned that you recommend people playing different classes and different heroes. Would you go as far to say you should try and play all different classes to get better at the game?
Well, I don't recommend because maybe the person, like, if you know that you're an aggro player, then I recommend just go into aggro decks. But if you kind of feel like the meta is shifting a bit to bad for aggro, I recommend you try other decks. For example, if aggro deck is not meta, in a meta, that means like okay, there'll be a lot of like guardians or defensive decks coming up against aggro decks, so you can try maybe go to the board state decks to try counter those guardian decks in a way. So I recommend like you can try all the decks, but like you sometimes you need to pinpoint what you're aiming for instead of like going out everywhere.
What do you think about the fact that, you know, a lot of the reds are being used for the more aggressive, and the blues are being used mostly for pitching? Do you feel like Flesh and Blood at the moment is in a situation where it's a bit too simple because mostly blue are just pitch and red are just attack? Or do you think there is enough variability in what LSS is giving us that is not always the case, and it makes deck building quite interesting, despite those basic tenets?
Well, during Heavy Hitters release, which was last year, beginning of the year, it is that kind of situation. Basically, like all your blues, you just pitch for attacks, which is like basically trading value back and forth, which is kind of mathy, and some people don't like the meta. But ever since Part of Mistville come out, like even the blues can be aggressive as the red cards, which is basically a more upside than a downside, which creates like a current situation where Flesh and Blood is a skill game, but there's also like a bit of variance in it, because once like you draw your strong blue power cards and you connect us together, it makes like a big turn for you. For example, there is like the 3 Part of Mist of heroes, and then you have Gravy, which uses good blue cards in a way to call allies to on the field and use, like, for example, disruption or maybe on hit effects.
Makes a lot of sense, and I actually didn't think about Gravy when I asked the question. But Gravy uses blue cards to great effect. Now we're talking about a lot of reds and blues, with reds being the cards which do the most damage and blue being good because they pitch for a lot, but you know, we've established they're also good in other cases. What about yellow cards? Do you feel like that is just a filler for sealed or draft formats, or do they have a role to play in the constructive formats?
Well, for yellow cards, sometimes I feel like LSS puts out like quite overpowered cards. Like for example, the cards they ban are R4, which is the effect is instant, 1 cost. You play it as instance, you banish a card from hand, draw 2, or you can give your next attack go again, or you all your attacks actions +1, which is kind of broken in some decks like Chain or the decks that you can like play cards from Banish Zone, and also you have like Tome of Findo, etc. Currently, I feel like the yellow cards, they are strong, but some of them they feel like okay in a way. But you have decks like Prism, which center around yellow cards. So I feel like the yellow cards is like okay in a way, but not bad, not good, because LSS is like ban most of the good cards. Well, currently the best yellow card is Riches of Topani, basically, because a lot of like decks can use it, and it's generic.
Yes, and it's a fable, so it's pretty hard to get. I think it's a legendary as well, in a way that you can only play 1 in your deck. Is that correct?
Yes. So the effects of Riches Topani is like when you pitch this card, you create a gold, which is upside in some of the heroes in this meta.
Yeah, so gold is often used, to my understanding, that you pay to destroy it to then draw a card, right? Which is a great effect. There are some heroes that we have available, especially from High Seas, one of the most recent sets that use that capability to power what their heroes do. Also for their hero abilities, they need gold. And there's some older heroes like Kasai that greatly benefit from having that gold around. So that card is very desirable and probably one of the best fables that they've ever released.
Yep, currently one of like the most soft fables compared to I and How to Find Though, which is like in some heroes, like just like you said, Kasai lets her turn on her hero abilities when she draws like from gold, or also Victor. Basically, when you pitch Riches of Trapani, you basically just draw a feed card, and then like you create a gold on spot too.
So when you're thinking about the different colors of cards and just the basics of attack, block, and pitch, just thinking about red, yellow, and blue again, when you're constructing a deck, what do you, on a basic level, look for in ratios of those cards to make a deck work?
So it depends on the heroes. For example, like the deck I brought in -IO at Calling Auckland, like Mechanologist, where cards you play is 0 cost, 1 cost, or 2 cost, which has the card keyword boost. Whenever you banish a Mechanologist card from top of the deck, it gains go again. So the way I build my deck is basically I want to try and maximize a card, which is called Maximum Velocity, which is 2 cost attack for 10. If I fulfill the boost keyword 3 times, I can just ascend it at 10 with 2 costs. So I try to like center it around when I'm looking at, okay, when I draw my 4-card hand, am I able to not use 2 cards to pitch just to send like 2 attacks? Am I able to use my 4-card hand and then sending 3 attacks, making my opponent pressure, and also by fulfilling the condition of doing the max V? But some decks, you don't need to have blues at all. Like, for example, the Red Line Syndra or the Phi. Well, Phi last time used to be a lot less blues, but now they run more blues. And also you have Aurora, which is just LL, which basically runs, most of it are like red cards, except her specialization and some of the strip power cards. But also Dromai, Red Line Dromai. And well, for the blue cards part, basically like Guardians, they need to run more blues to fulfill their like high cost attacks, as I said before. So I feel like it depends on a deck, like what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to achieve it by making the correct ratios of the red and blue. And in a way, if you want to try to improve yourself and knowing like if the deck is workable in a way like that, I recommend you need to like tune your deck and try the ratios and play out. You can't just like build a deck and say, okay, in theory it works, but sometimes, well, it's a card game. You have luck, you have variance, and you might face the bad situation. So you need to understand, how do you get out of that bad situation when you drew the hand? Is it possible if you can tune your deck to avoid that or not?
Would you say it's fair to say that sometimes, just to paraphrase, you can draw all red or you can draw all blue if you don't want, but then you need to think or see how often does that happen?
Yep, you need to see how often does that happen. If, for example, you put like maybe, okay, so in Flesh and Blood, if you play CC, you need like minimum 60 cards in a deck. For example, if you put like maybe 30 or above as a Guardian, so most of the time you're just going to draw reds and you're just going to block the cards. But if you tune down the red card to maybe like 10 or 15, the chances will be a lot lower. So it depends on the situation. But at the way, you need to know, if you drew that hand and you lower the possibility already, is it possible to function, or how are you gonna like solve the problem when you drew that hand?
Yeah, it's a very good point, and I really like that what you're talking about today is really boiling it down to the very basics of the game. And one of the crucial things that even before you think about any text and anything your hero wants to do, you need to understand red, yellow, and blue cards and how you put them into your deck. So thank you very much for talking about that today. We're all already out of time. But before we go, is there anything else you would like to mention? Any shout outs or anything that you would like to plug or anything like that?
Well, currently I'm in a team called Table One. I'm gonna shout out to them. Recently I joined them. I hope that everyone from our team, we can like try to get a good result at Worlds or maybe any other future events they're in. and also we're in a kind of weird spot where like we don't have draft for worlds, and so I feel like having a team we can like do both sides of like constructed instead of like testing draft is kind of good. So, and also shout out my friends back at Malaysia and Taiwan, and shout out my friends from different places all around the world, I guess.
CYK, thank you so much for joining today. Good luck for Worlds, and have a fantastic day.
Thank you. You too.